get to hang out with you guys again. Yeah, I don't have video available today, but hopefully be back to that again soon. So I think this week we're planning on chatting through, we've been posting some videos for a while now, all the way since April, I think Levi was telling us. And there's been some comments here and there, some questions that probably need to be answered. And I know I don't check the comments very often, but it's probably good to do that every now and then. So we wanted to just give some feedback to the people who are asking. Oz, do you want to pick us up with the first question we've got for the day?
Yeah, so our first question is more of a comment. Shout out to Devin Mork here on episode 1. He says, man, I love these videos. It's a great reminder of how, quote, normal everyone throughout RP actually is. And I think that's actually a really good point. I think sometimes it's easy to see people posting content and thinking they're some sort of Superman. And in reality, it's a bunch of guys who are trying to figure things out. So thank you for that comment.
Right.
So,
and on that line,
yeah, go ahead.
I love just Paul's own take on all that. I am the least of all the or of all the apostles, then talks about I'm the least among all the saints. Even further beyond that, I'm the least of the worst of even the sinners. And so there is some sense where it's easy to want to glorify and idolize people, but in reality, we are to some degree trying to maintain the humility that the apostles preach. So just to note that.
Yeah, I think there's a point kind of worth of clarification, and I think that it's one of those RP truisms, and one of the things you learn early on is you don't self-deprecate. So was Paul self-deprecating there?
That's a good point. I don't think he's self-deprecating so much as realizing it's like the more you learn, the more you know, like you really don't know that much. It's kind of like when I was going to college and I was learning about the human body, studying anatomy and physiology. The more I got into it, the more I was like, I know literally nothing. I know like just a sliver. That's I think what he's talking about. I think the more you learn about your sin nature, the more you're just like, wow, I'm like a little peon.
It's extreme humility. Extreme humility, and there's a point where extreme humility crosses over into self-deprecation. I think that's when you actually start being negative about yourself. There's nothing wrong with seeing yourself in a realistic point of view from the way that God would see you from a humble point of view. But when it goes, when it crosses the line to you putting yourself down for the sake of deprecation, then that's a different story.
Right. So I usually talk about humility in terms of or at least I define humility to say that it is living in light of who you are accurately before God and man. So I can say among you guys, I'm pretty confident that I'm the best racquetball player here. I could smoke any of you guys in the court, right? I could say that with all due humility because it's, from my perspective at least, pretty darn true. I'd be very, very shocked if anybody here could top me at racquetball. At the same time, on the other end of the spectrum, when I'm talking to forensic psychologists, as qualified as I am to talk about psychological issues because of aspects of my career, when I'm in the presence of an actual psychologist, I always say, or have to qualify what I'm saying, hey, here's my theory, but you're the expert, not me. I don't really know what I'm talking about. I'm just speaking as an amateur. I'm not deprecating myself when I do that. I'm speaking accurately about who I am. And especially when I'm in the courtroom and trying to qualify what I'm saying as an attorney versus what I'm trying to opine upon as an amateur, I have to be able to do that. And that's perfectly appropriate. And I think when Paul talks in terms of, I'm the worst and the least of all these, right? He's not doing it in a hyperbolic exaggeration like we would imagine many forms of self-deprecation being. Instead, I see him saying, oh, no, the more that I see and examine and understand the true nature of my own sinfulness, I realize my own sin more than you might even realize yours. And it makes me comparatively, if you understood the full weight of the sinfulness that I have in me, and I know you, Oz, like your tulip peddling ways, I have the doctrine of total depravity, right? I think that is Paul's way of saying the more mature I grow, the more I realize just how totally depraved I am in my flesh. And that's how he is expressing it.
Yeah, thanks for the tulip shout out, by the way. Boom. But I think there's a key point between arrogance and confidence. So confidence is believing you can. Arrogance is thinking that you cannot fail. And so I think there's this recognition of where you really are. And that's what you're talking about with those examples of knowing where you stack up in the ranks. And I think that when somebody recognizes a deficit, but doesn't let that shake their frame or worldview, and they suddenly, they seem like they loathe themselves. I think when you get into that area where self-deprecating is so unattractive, it's where somebody's shortcomings or somebody's lack of, I guess, complete skill in some area doesn't seem to bother them, and they're okay with that because that's just who they are at this point. And I think that can actually be a good demonstration of confidence. I think it's super insecure when people think that they need to be an expert at everything, and it only comes off as really cringy if you're around somebody like that, but you actually know more than them about the topic, and it can be really like very, very self-defeating. So I think the difference between like confidence and arrogance is really key to understanding that as well. So moving on to the next one here, this is more of a technical note on our show on creatine. It says, Austin Gable went ahead and posted on here about the mechanism of creatine. Creatine holds onto a phosphate group and donates that to ADP to make ATP. ATP is the basic energy currency of the cell. The weight gains are from the water that is additionally taken up into the cell to support the creatine. What you get from creatine is more free energy available to do work, more reps/weight. Also, due to the ATP mechanism being present in all cells, it also increases cognition speed and accuracy. Hope this helps in making decisions about creatine. So that was a fun episode to do. Glad to have some thoughts weigh in. And if people out there don't, either agree with us or they have additional insight, feel free to leave it on there. We're here to learn too, and it can be very helpful to our whole audience for people to weigh in if that's something that you're an expert about. Moving into our episode on state of biblical marriage, episode 3, David N. writes, really loved your point, John, on being cautious about appropriately giving freely to your wife. I'm not sure if I exactly understood your point, but in trying to bring it back to what's scriptural, do you think that there seems to be a need where their lack of obedience for a heavier distinction between husband's service and his intimacy, the former to be given unconditionally in prayer for the sufficient loving obedience necessary for the latter?
You're going to have to read that again.
I've read it like 3 times. I was hoping that you would understand it. So he wrote another comment on the same thing. So maybe this clears things up.
Which channel is that, or which episode is that?
Number 3. He also writes, considering the sexual marketplace in the church should be chaste, unadulterous, and without need of state intervention, you feel there are 2 issues here: the authoritarian, perverse, pansexual, anti-male subversion of marriage, and the need to separate our marriages in the church to be godly rather than worldly. And so the best thing we could do for our churches is to get the state's registry out, along with its need for prenups, as in divorce should be avoided if at all possible. P.S. Please forgive me for hardening my heart toward you guys. I have my disagreements and confusions, but still your ministry, I believe, is still necessary. So I think I followed that one a little bit. That one we actually had replied to at one point, but yeah, David, thanks for writing in. And if we need additional clarification, if we're not nailing it, leave another comment in this episode and we'll see if we can get a little better that time. So John, did you have any weigh-ins on that, or any of you guys?
Yeah, I'm just reading the question right now, but go ahead.
Yeah, it was a little bit too long for me to like respond just by hearing it. I think I'd have
so
to.
Yeah, I think the kernel of it here, in at least the second comment he left, was do you think that the best thing we could do for our churches is to get the state's registry out along with its need for prenups? So should we separate the church and the state when it comes to marriage? I think is what he's getting at.
Well, at some point, if you fulfill the command or the go make disciples of all nations. I can't believe I've heard.
Great Commission.
Anyways, Great Commission. Oh my gosh. If you fulfilled that, eventually the states would all become Christian and the government would all become Christian, and then you'd have, the state would have Christian marriage laws, and then, the marriage, it kind of seems like a backward step to me. Well, currently the church or the state is implementing laws on the church. I think it should eventually, if we do fulfill the Great Commission, that should go the other way around. The church should eventually work its way into all parts of the world and then start making Christian marriage laws. At this point, should we separate them? I don't personally. I'm not going to be endorsing any sort of state marriage at this current point in time until the church becomes powerful enough by way of spreading God's kingdom to make advantageous Christian state laws. That was
okay. John, I know you've got
until,
some big thoughts on this one here.
Yeah, even that until, I don't know that I would go along with. There's no point where I would ever just endorse a state marriage, right? It's always a biblical thing before God. If the state wants to develop some form of a civil union, you know, if they call it marriage, use that word, whatever they want to do, that's fine. But we have to understand that there's civil unions that the state calls marriage, and then there's biblical marriage that the church calls marriage. And by using the same word for both, we're causing a lot of confusion. And so I get that there's a lot of liberals out there who really love the idea of, oh, well, you don't own the word marriage. If we want to use marriage, we can use it too. But that's the whole liberal agenda right there, is just redefining words in order to make themselves feel good about themselves, right? That's why they can take the word, tolerate and say, oh, you're all intolerant because I've redefined the word tolerant, right? And so this happens constantly where words are being redefined and it screws with everything. That being said, if we look at marriage purely from a biblical aspect, there's no need to ever get the state involved. It can always be between God and man, except to the degree that God himself has a sanctioned government. So like in the Old Testament times, Israel was a physical government, right? But when we have the church in the New Testament, like and all the way through the present, of course, we're not talking about a physical kingdom, but a spiritual kingdom. And so our spiritual kingdom, and I know you have some thoughts on that, not to say that we shouldn't be, and I completely agree with your premise of saying, yes, we should be influencing physical kingdoms, but I do believe that there's no laws that we're subject to the same way in the Old Testament, right? There's no physical location that we're all bound to the same way Israel was. Instead, God binds us in a different way. And so with that, as long as we are subject to secular physical authorities, I don't have any thought, care, concern whatsoever for what the secular government has to say, except to the degree that they're actually going to enforce it. So if I am going to be married under this, under the church or under a spiritual marriage, as we would call it, and say I'm not going to get married under the state, that's somebody's prerogative. They can do that. There's nothing biblically requiring you to go to your local government and get a marriage certificate when you can just as well be married before God, through acknowledging it, whether to the church or even just, anyway, I don't want to belabor that point. But if somebody is going to live in a country where the government will impose certain marital obligations, for example, some countries still have common law marriage where you can say, I'm not going to get married before the state, but they're going to constructively deem you married and subject you to their laws of marriage anyway. So you got to be careful with that. Same thing's true with child custody laws. No matter what happens with prenups or staying out of physical marriage, if you have kids together, the kids are the jurisdiction of the court that you live in anyway. There's no getting around that by any form of prenup or avoiding certain marriages or trying to contract away parental rights. It doesn't happen. The court's always going to maintain jurisdiction. So there are some things that you just can't get out of.
So I'll offer a couple of quick thoughts. We're gonna have to start hitting these kind of quickly since we're only on episode 3 so far. Quick thought would be, at the end of the day, what a state does is it recognizes something that God already has recognized, and states can do that in a way that is it enhances the marriage, it enhances the community, it builds society. So they're offering tax breaks, incentives, whatever, to incentivize people or encourage marriage, or it can work against that. And I would argue that we're at a position right now where the state is working against that, where it is so punitive to the man in marriage when it comes to child custody, among other things, that it's disincentivizing the formation of marriages. And that's a problem. And it's a problem the church has not yet dealt with in any sort of mainstream way. And I think that we are ripe for that conversation to carry on and take place in a more meaningful way. Secondly, we have countries in the world that have shown, like Hungary right now and Poland are doing some cool things legally to incentivize their people to get married, and their birth rates are turning around. And it's pretty obvious when you start thinking about it, but there's a bigger question at hand here as to what is the state trying to accomplish. And right now it is not the formation of stable marriages to build a stable population. So we digress. Quick thing here, kind of fun. So NSA is here. He commented a bunch on our videos. He has a bit of a crush on us, I think. He says, and I feel sorry for John's wife. Hopefully one day she wakes up. And also, what a bunch of idiots. Thank God I don't know anyone like this in real life. Makes for great entertainment. So thanks, NSA. Appreciate you being out there. Keep listening.
If only he knew how much my wife likes to sleep. If you want to go back to the previous question, I think I understand what the guy's asking, by the way.
All right.
He's saying, do you think when there seems to be a need when there lacks obedience, meaning if the wife is not obeying, that we should have a heavier distinction between a husband's service toward her and his expectation of intimacy from her? And he suggests that the former should be given unconditionally in prayer, meaning the husband should unconditionally serve his wife and prayerfully with the hope and expectation that she would lovingly obey, that would cause her loving obedience toward intimacy with him. And if that's the question that he's asking, no, I don't see those as connected or related at all. You cannot negotiate desire. You can't serve your way enough times into making her want to have sex with you. I don't know if that's exactly what he's asking, but that's the way I interpret it.
Shore play ain't foreplay. Cool. Episode 4. Here we go. Taylor, thank you for the shout out. He says, good job on the intro and visual layout. Our Horizon is our guy who does that. He does a great job. So huge shout out to him. Sabrina also says, love the intro. Great talk, guys. I probably won't pronounce this right, but it's I lie. He says, lucky man, Patrick. Wife can go anytime. Haha. I recognize him commenting on a few videos here. So Patrick and his wife get a shout out there. So good stuff. Taylor writes in the next episode, 24 minutes in is exactly what makes RPC great. Challenging men stop and be introspective about their mission for Christ, 2 Corinthians 13:5, and what that looks like in the context of relationship with women. Why do I want to get married? Does my reason line up with biblical justifications for marriage? Am I actually ready for marriage? A person worth marrying? Great discussion. So another shout out there. Somebody had a comment about John's audio level. He's changed some stuff around, especially this episode. So if you have more feedback on that, that would be a good time for it. NSA writes a bunch more love on here, a bunch more on the next one. Captain Nonsense writes, can y'all do an episode on what you call mission? After skimming your sub, it seems like this is a big hang up for most of your visitors. I think we have touched on this a lot since then, but in a brief nutshell, John, you want to give your elevator pitch for mission for anybody who's listening who's familiar?
Sure. The basic thing for mission is simply to say that it is everything. If you stay on board with your mission, then if you have a one-track mind of, hey, this is what I'm trying to accomplish out of life. If you want to have an abundance mentality, right, the more you pursue your mission and make accomplishments in what you really care about, the less you will worry about your scarcity and these other things that people try to say, oh, you're not getting enough of this and you're not getting enough of that. You need more of this, right? You're not going to listen to all the world's clamor about all those things. Similarly, you're going to find that not just abundance, but if you want to have an amused mastery, right, by seeing things from a missional big picture perspective of this is what's really important in my life, this is what I'm really focusing on, then all of the other petty garbage that comes your way is just stuff you can laugh off because it's not significant or important to you in the grand scheme of things, right? Or if you focus on mission, it's so much easier to have that DNGAF attitude because as you focus on mission, all of these other things become sidelined, right? And so the more you develop your concept of this is what I'm trying to accomplish in life, the more that all of these other concepts that we try to instill in guys become second nature. And so you really just have to stay mission focused, and everything else falls into line. You can try to manufacture the other things individually if you want to, but if you do it from the context of trying to pursue a mission as your primary focus, it will come naturally and be infused into part of your character naturally rather than having to be fabricated.
Well, and I'm going to add here, as far as mission goes, the most important thing, as far as I'm concerned, other than just getting started and kind of giving it some thought, is developing your character. And I hammer this over and over in responses. God wants to make us like his son. How do you do that? By doing the things the son did, by developing the characteristics that Jesus had and has. And a lot of that has to do with the fruits of the Spirit. That was given to us for a reason. And for people that may not know where to start on their mission, we always say, put your own oxygen mask on first. We kind of use that as a kind of a euphemism for, you know, work on yourself first, because even Jesus did that. You know, he went off on his own and prayed and worked on his relationship with the Father while he was here. So you have to focus on yourself to a certain degree. And part of that is developing the characteristics that make you a godly person. A lot of that comes through developing the fruits of the Spirit. And that's done in partnership and in conjunction with the Spirit. So for those people that don't know where to start on their mission, I would say start there. Look at your life, look at yourself, say, here's the fruits of the Spirit. There's going to be one or two that stand out, and you're going to say, I don't have any of that. And when you see those, you know, those are red areas. Address those first. Try to bring those up, because it's like we say, be attractive, don't be unattractive. Well, those fruits that you are completely lacking in, those are unattractive areas to God. Work on those, because those drag you down. If you have no patience at all, for instance, just to pick one, well, you should work on your patience. How do you develop patience? By having to wait and practicing being okay with that in the Spirit and having some self-control. Oh, there's another one. So they kind of go hand in hand. I would say start there.
Right. And if you want to get one comment real fast on developing a proper mission, because I know this is one of the number one things that gets asked on the topic of mission, is what's a good mission? How do I know how to develop my mission, right? You should be able to sit on your deathbed and look back and say, I am so glad that I did blank with my life, that this is what I want to have accomplished to leave behind to the next generation. Right. And so some people say, oh, I just want to sit on my deathbed and know that I, love my wife and was a good father to my kids, which is fine. But at the end of the day, you're not really leaving anything behind, right? What is it that you want to have accomplished with your children? Do you want them to be godly children that you've discipled them? Great, go disciple them, right? Or if your mission is to say, you know what, I'm looking back on my life, I am so glad that I built this company from scratch and I'm so proud of having done that, right? Okay, great. Build a company is your mission. But be able to look back at something at the end of your life and say, this is what I want to know that I have accomplished before I am dead.
All right. You guys need to figure out what quick comment means, just saying. So that's our mission episode, if anybody was wondering. So moving on to episode 7 here, we have Taylor saying this is the best episode thus far. Smooth back and forth dialogue, lots of practical application, and some Bible study. Thanks for that. We try to make it as balanced as possible. Obviously, there's some theoretical stuff that goes on, but we try to keep it practical. Gina says, if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. Exactly. And I think that was one of the key takeaways from that episode. More hugs and kisses from NSA. Super exciting stuff. There was some comments about Levi changing his shirt, or John maybe wearing the same shirt from the previous week. Some fun stuff there. If you guys know what we're talking about, that was a good episode. Looking at, episode 11, this is a great comment. Chibi Corner says, I'm 100% here for John's beard. And we have not had an update on John's beard in a while. So John, how's the beard coming? Or is that why you turned off your video? Is there some beard shame going on?
No, I definitely shaved that after about a month of trying to grow it. I still got nothing.
Oh man, not everybody can have such a blessing as a beard. So we have another comment here from I Lie here. Thanks for the discussion regarding our Horizons point of building influence in real life and running game with people you find attractive. Would the panel support doing so without first seeing if they are people of faith, or is that inconsequential? I find that in my city, most people don't make their beliefs apparent to others, and so want to confirm that doing so would be biblical, not awakening love before it's time via flirting, i.e. with girls who see you for your influence, attractiveness, but whom you would not actually marry if their faith was different. And then also for the single guys on RPC, can you guys do a follow-up discussion on online dating? Given modern society's ready acceptance of this medium, I think it'd be worth diving into. So I'm going to address the second one, and then we can talk about the first part. So on online dating, that's really not been the experience of most of the panel here. Levi has a little bit more, but the rest of us, I mean, we're old dudes who've been married for a while, I guess, and the online dating thing wasn't nearly as prevalent. those in our audience, if there's somebody who feels like they've got this nailed and would be interested in having this discussion, reach out, because that's, like this guy's saying, it's a need out there and one that I think our community can speak into. So reminder of the first part of the question here. So would this panel support doing so, running game on people without first seeing if they are people of faith, or is that inconsequential?
Inconsequential.
Expand on that.
I would say you're gonna, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Levi.
So I think it's weird. I think it's weird to go up and, like, you know, even if you try to be as socially adept as possible and say, like, hey, are you Christian? And then flirt. It's kind of weird. And if you're really hung up on it, go to church, like a big building, and you're probably going to have a lot higher chances of finding somebody that's a Christian there. But not everybody that goes to church is an actual Christian, so it's just a safer bet. I think that just, you know, going throughout your day, flirting as you go throughout your day, and then if a girl, you know, qualifies herself in whatever way, spiritually and, you know, physically and all those other things, you know, then proceed from there. I think that with approaching girls, if you have it in your mind, like for me, I always want to be better at talking and flirting with girls, like more comfortable. And so I notice in the times where I do, like, I'm like, okay, I'm going to approach, if I have it in my mind, like I'm only going to approach girls that I think are Christian or that meet these certain qualifications in the moment where, you know, I'm feeling nervous. I'm gonna find something to like focus on that disqualifies that girl. Oh, she, you know, she has this thing wrong. Oh, she has a knee brace on. Like, I don't want a girl with, you know, health problems or whatever, like making an excuse to not go approach an otherwise like cute girl. Or you could use that same kind of mindset for, oh, she's not Christian or she doesn't look very Christian, so I'm not gonna go approach her. I think that if you want to become comfortable, that you should kind of expand your horizon, and who knows, you'll probably find a cute girl that's Christian in your journey doing so.
Yeah. I agree with that. It's it really comes down to being comfortable with talking with everyone. And that is a skill that for anybody out there who's single and you're having trouble dating, don't just focus on talking to girls. Focus on getting comfortable talking with everyone. Learn to overcome that hesitation, that fear of turning around and talking to the person behind you in line at the grocery store when you're waiting. Just strike up a conversation about just something you notice. Most people, they're so buried in their phones and they're so distracted and they're so closed off and they're so just secluded. They'll be glad to just have one good, genuine moment of human connection. And I will say this, when you do reach out, don't reach out with the agenda of, hey, is this person Christian or not? Or, hey, should I try to convert this person? Now, obviously, we want to share Christ, so don't take that the wrong way. But, you know, and I pulled up this comment so I could read it, because this comment really just, it really convicted me. I had a guy send me a private message where we had talked on Discord, and he said, you know, dude, you can communicate with others like me without feeling the compulsion or exercising the compulsion. Give it a try for a year. I reach out to you with no agenda ever. Would appreciate the same in return. Now, I wasn't actively trying to convert the guy, at least not consciously. It's always on the back of my mind. Of course, I want to see people come to the Lord, but I don't want to be that guy that's always just got that agenda. You know, hey, if the Lord is there, he'll guide us. We'll get there. And just be mindful of that when you're connecting with people.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally agree. And I would
one last
real quickly,
sorry.
let me jump in here and just say, you should approach everyone, guys, girls, whatever, because human interaction is plain interesting. It just is. And sometimes it's not, and that alone can be interesting. So do it for your own amusement. And if you don't find it amusing, you probably really need to do it for your own amusement. What were you saying, Levi?
Yeah. Last thing, one last framework I'll give for like approaching a girl, rather than if she's pretty, just is she bangable? Like, if you were not a Christian, would you bang this girl? Like, that for me qualifies as a like, yes, I will approach this girl. And who knows, she might have a really awesome personality. She might be Christian, and she might just qualify herself in that way, and something might happen. So if nothing else, it should be a fun interaction, or should learn to fail and get better.
I also have a post in my history titled Social Influence and Defying Context, worth a read on the subject for just learning how to approach people and becoming comfortable with that.
Cool.
Nice. Maybe we can link that.
Yep. Good stuff. All right. So moving on to the next comment there, it's Chibi Corner writes again, the opening might be criticized. And if anybody wasn't aware, we got a bunch of criticism from a bunch of Spurgs on our opening. So it's kind of funny. He says the opening might be criticized as if we haven't taken into consideration people's lust. That's why we don't let Oz turn on his webcam. So kind of a funny comment there. The reason I don't turn on a webcam is because I actually don't have eyes or anything north of my nose. So it'd be very awkward for everybody here. So let's see. Dudenator20 writes on episode 13, great video, guys. It's funny how I found you. You were right. Desire is a powerful force and should be directed at God himself. He will help in transforming and directing it. I could also very much follow the Aikido analogy as well, as I've practiced that art. Amen, brothers. Interesting one here following up. So this one isn't a question, but I think we can make it a question. So Devin Mork writes, just reflecting on this, all you guys on here are exactly spot on. It's pure biblical and admirable how you approach relationships and sexuality. This podcast is a much needed addition to relational perspectives found here on YouTube and in the church. However, if I were to take a transcript from this and your other podcasts and hold up next to a typical Reddit post or comment from any of you, the Reddit versions of you, most of you sound like sex-obsessed sociopaths by comparison. On YouTube, committed to living out the glory of God through a beautiful marriage. On Reddit, sex through whatever means necessary. I don't know. It feels duplicitous, and I think I'm much better served by the YouTube versions of you when you're using real voices, not your keyboard voices. So interesting feedback there. So anybody want to weigh in on that?
It's just the difference between targeted content versus open forum conversation, right? So when we're talking on these podcasts, yeah, we have a general topic, but we're also kind of free forming it, right? We're just being ourselves. When you're on Reddit, you don't have the character length. And by the way, my posts and comments are already way long enough as is. So if you really wanted me to go on Reddit and just share everything I think as I think it, the same way that I can when I'm freeform talking,
you'll regret it.
Yeah, be prepared. But realistically, you can't do that, right? You have to stay more focused. And so when we're on Reddit, we're chatting with a specific targeted point that we're trying to make. And if the point of the subreddit is to talk about concepts of sexuality and masculinity and all of that, and understanding the distinction between those concepts and what the feminine imperative or the liberals try to say here or there, right? We're going to have very focused and targeted things. You have to expect that.
Well, and I commented on that video as well. You know, people search out red pill subs for a reason. So we're sensitive to that. And we try to minister to that. On here, like you said, John, it's more free form. We can just kind of hit the topics as they come. It's targeted on Reddit. It's targeted for a reason. And that reason is well served by the content we provide. If we didn't have a focus, then there'd be no reason for people to come there.
Right. So with the Red Man group, for example, I assume some people are familiar with that. That is the Married Red Pill forum of Rollo Tomasi and Ryan Stone when they were doing those things. And there was a comment that was made on there at one point that one of the main goals they had was not necessarily of the topic of the day, but it was just to show people how men interact with each other, how they talk, how they act and behave, right? In my view, the podcast that we're doing has a very similar intention. Yeah, there are topics. The topics are important, but they are not the main goal of what we do, right? Part of what I like about this and what I told you guys when we were first starting this podcast is I would like it, if nothing else, just to be a conversation among us guys that just other people get to listen in on. And I think that's valuable. Yeah,
I agree. I think there's a medium issue here as well. You know, the written form in a lot of ways has become so casualized, if you will, has been so watered down compared to what has been written in the past. If you go back and read dead Christian writers, man, they were much more pointed than anything you would get on like the Gospel Coalition or other places. People are so used to being dealt with velvet gloves and being coddled that it's honestly kind of debilitating. And I think a lot of people hit the subreddit and they're so used to being just coddled and pampered by their pastor and their friends around them, and they come there and they say, oh my gosh, this person is saying mean things and they're very direct, what am I doing? And it really frankly is very representative of the generation of guys who never grew up around men, and so when they encounter that, it's kind of a punch in the face at first, and I'm okay with that. That's fine, and it's actually necessary to help guys. It's really there by design. Like what I write intentionally. I know sometimes it seems like a firebrand and it's very direct and in your face, but again, there's an intention behind that, because there's nowhere else in the church you're going to get that, and we're doing men a disservice by saying that that's somehow unloving. Unloving is letting somebody continue on with like terrible paradigms and running over and over into the wall that they're finding themselves smashing into without any kind of new information. So sometimes it takes some really direct, really we'll just say inventive words and language to get somebody to actually like snap and wake up. And I would just recommend take a look at some of the other subs out there, and we go so tame in comparison, and it's often me the one holding myself back version of this, even including here on the podcast, because I know that some of it's very unpalatable. But I think just as a whole, the issue in a lot of ways is guys in the church expect to be coddled, and that just has to stop, and I have no patience for it.
And bear in mind the fact that this emotional coddling that happens, right, is what I would call, quote unquote, the nice way of trying to get people to change and grow. The church has tried the nice way over and over and over again. For some people, it works. For the majority, it doesn't. And so that's why we see a bunch of pew sitters who just, want to show up on Sunday morning, go home, not actually change or do anything with their faith. And so if that method is not working for the majority of people, then why should everybody put their eggs in the be nice basket, right? So somebody has to say, I don't know, there's alternative approaches too. Yeah, maybe some people will respond to the be nice approach, but if the majority aren't, we're going to try to take an alternative approach and we'll do what gets results.
Well, and just remember too, what we do is not for everybody. So if a person is that offended by the blunt truth that we're speaking, then well, maybe this isn't the place that God's going to speak to you. Where they're using it to speak to a lot of people, he's using it to speak to a lot of people. So I will just say, keep that in mind. It's not for everybody.
And I'll throw out to hop on the Discord. If you want proof that what we're doing works, the Discord is a great place to go look for that.
Yeah, and keep in mind too, some of the difference in tone here is because we're talking among guys we respect, and there's this idea out there that respect is something that's just automatically given and not earned. These guys have earned the respect of the other guys here, and that's how men operate. And if you haven't understood that yet, it's because you probably haven't encountered a male space. So if you think that some of the posts are disrespectful in tone, it's because there's a lot of people who we don't respect, and that's part of the thing is to offer an opportunity to gain respect, you have to put difficult content out there at times and see how guys handle it. And it's amazing how quickly people lose frame over these just silliest of posts, and they get all butthurt about something that was said to them in reply, and it's just demonstrating the fact that they need it more than anyone else. So again, it's intentional.
And bear in mind, like you say, it's intentional. A lot of the times when people get butthurt about a reply, it's because we're trying to test them to see if they get butthurt and can handle it, or if they really have the frame and the competency that they pretend to have when they're posting.
Yep. Hazing serves a purpose here. Cool. Here's a fun comment here. I think you're overdue for another video. Now own your stuff. Fair comment. We went a little while without a video, so we're trying to be more regular about it, but we're guys with regular lives too. All right. So we've got the episode we did where we had a couple women on, single women in the red pill number 15. So Benane Wayne wrote in, from the perspective of a woman who is more, quote, masculine, I feel the exact opposite in feminine clothing. I like how it looks on other women, but when I wear it, I feel, quote, not myself, deeply uncomfortable and ugly. I have no issue with people wearing whatever they want. I just want to make it clear that femininity isn't for every woman. Not every woman is naturally feminine, and that's okay. It's not a question, but I think it's worth a follow-up.
Not every woman has natural levels, like natural normal levels of estrogen and testosterone in their system. So my gut recommendation is go check your like estrogen levels. They're probably off.
I will say this. You do you, but realize it's going to affect your potential mate selection, your attractiveness to the opposite sex. It is going to be a factor. If that's not an issue for you, then hey, you do you. But realize if that is important to you, then bringing yourself more in line with what men expect as far as traditional femininity is probably going to benefit you.
Right. There's also personal things that come into play here too, right? So if you are a 250-pound woman and you feel deeply uncomfortable and ugly, quote, because you're wearing a slim black dress that would look great on a woman who is a size 6 or whatever, right? There's going to be an issue there. That's probably why you feel uncomfortable with it. So there's personal issues. Now I have no idea what, this person looks like, but that's one thing that I would want to keep in mind. I guess I'll stop myself there.
Yeah, I think what Chuck said was pretty spot on. Like, if you're truly content with that, great, more power to you, carry on. But I think that a lot of women who post these type of things don't have that deep contentment that they seem to put out there. I've known a couple in my own life who they kind of fit this bill, and they would also, when they would really get down to it and kind of open up to people, lament the fact that they were single, lament the fact that guys didn't like them for, quote, who they really were on the inside. And frankly, that's just a childish perspective of the world. There's a reason why people behave and are attracted the way they do. And to run against the grain and expect the world to bend around you is really, frankly, a very unchristian way of thinking, because God designed this world and this creation to work a certain way. And when you run against the design, you should expect to encounter problems. And the opposite is true. Go with the design and things tend to turn out better for you. I mean, that's basically the book of Proverbs in a nutshell.
Right. So that leads me to want to comment then. One of the things you're trying to address here is my goal to feel comfortable being the way that I feel like being, or is the goal to get the results in life that I want, right? So if the result that you want is I want to get a man to notice me, then obviously dressing more feminine is going to be the best way to do that. And you say, oh, but I like wearing sweatpants all the time. Well, that's fine, but good luck getting a guy to notice you, right? So you have to balance your goals versus whatever you feel like. And at the end of the day, it's not always about you, right? At some point, you have to recognize, oh, if I'm going to be married someday, I have a spouse that, especially for a woman, you have to be thinking about what will make my husband happy. How can I serve him? How can I be a source of inspiration and joy to him? And if wearing feminine clothes will do that, even though it's not the most comfortable thing for you, right? That's something you have to take into consideration.
Yeah, and that actually, I'm going to just go ahead and bounce off that one a little bit here. Part of it, too, is what's making God happy. When I see a guy, just to flip this around a little bit, when I see a guy who's 100 pounds soaking wet and he thinks that running marathons is what's going to make him, this great, athletic figure, and he otherwise is a, limp noodle when it comes to his interactions with people, he's not being masculine. One of these sins that's talked about, I think it's in 1 Corinthians 6, that is often translated as homosexuality. It's actually two different sins. It's the men with other men, and it's also effeminacy. And I think there's a lot of effeminate men, and that's listed there as a sin. And so when you run into that issue, and you can say that men who are acting effeminately are running contrary to God's design, and that's not okay. I think there is something to be said about when a woman says, well, she's more, quote, masculine. I guess the question is, what does that, quote, masculine mean to a degree? But arguably, I would say that if God designed men and women to be different, we should lean into, to borrow an overused phrase, and celebrate and try to embrace those differences. And of course, everybody starts from a different point and everybody can end at a different point. But I think moving in that direction is important, not only because it's what God, I think, has created us to do. And I think the Bible bears it out well, but I also think that it's important because it does make us happy, because it's how we were designed. And if it doesn't make you happy, the problem might not be with the design.
Right. So when she says something like, I just want to make it clear that femininity isn't for every woman, not every woman is naturally feminine, that's okay. Or, I just don't feel comfortable. Those are very solipsistic, self-centered phrases that make it seem like your entire focus is on, well, this is what I feel, and that's all that should matter. When
reality, also most of your ancestors are disagreeing with you right now.
Right.
All right, moving on. Let's see. Excalibur SPO writes, respectfully, Stephanie's dietary change was spurred on by unusual health issues. She worked with professionals and changed her fitness focus. Shows what can be accomplished if you learn your body. I need a part 2 on this single woman topic. I agree. We should set that up sometime. So more people want that to definitely post about it. Christina Jackson writes, I know you guys talked some about lifting here, and obviously its importance is highlighted in the RP Christians sidebar, but it may be beneficial to do a podcast with any advice and suggestions for both beginners and more experienced lifters for both men and women. I'm just going to comment. I agree. We replied to that one saying we're not fitness experts. No one here on the panel is, any kind of professional trainer. That said, we have figured some things out. So if there's a big demand for this, if people come out in the comments and say they want something like that, that might be with a tipping point to have us do that. It's something I'm obviously very passionate about, and I think all the guys here would agree. So if that's something that's interesting to you, comment about it.
That goes for any of the topics tonight. Any of the topics that we've covered, any of the comments we've made. If it's something you want to see more of, if it's something you have questions on, if it's something you think needs to be addressed more, comment on it, and we'll consider that for future episodes.
Yep, good point.
Let's see. I'll comment and say that if anybody's looking for really good science-based fitness advice, Jeff Nippard. I mentioned it before. Oz has mentioned it. Jeff Nippard. His girlfriend's kind of going through some weird body positive things right now. I think she's kind of leveling out, but he has 10-minute videos where he grabs the most current studies on how to get basically the best gains.
Yeah, and I think there's a degree of with this question, if you do comment about it, say if you're a man or woman, I think that's going to depend a little bit. There are some differences in how you train to have the most aesthetic body there. Cool. Moving on to our comments on episode 16. I lie. Dude, thanks for all the listens. Seems like you're pretty engaged on this one. So yeah, definitely keep on commenting. We appreciate the engagement. They write.
Wait. Is it ILY?
I space LAI.
Okay.
I have no idea how to pronounce that. So sorry for probably mispronouncing this 47 different ways. But anyways, appreciate the comments. They write, thanks for the info shared. This is a great groundwork for developing as an RP man. Could you do a follow-up with examples from your dating life of how you applied frame as well as frame applications in your cold approaches and in any online dating you may have done? So do you gentlemen have any examples of how you apply frame, especially in the context of cold approaches or dating?
I don't think applying frame is the correct phrasing. I guess I feel like what he's asking is how do your interactions go with cold approaching and maintaining frame? Because
So just I'll just offer one thought out here. I think that when you look at what is a cold approach, we tend to think of what happens after that is you tend to get tests. Every guy is fearful of what happens after you approaches that test that comes back from the woman. So if we expect that test to come right away, it means she's testing your frame from the onset. So there's definitely an appropriate point of asking this question of how do you apply frame when it comes to cold approaching? I think maybe a better way of putting it is in what ways do you maintain or draw her into your frame? One example that I would just throw out there to kind of get the ball rolling would be compliance testing from the start. So one way you can approach is to ask a favor of somebody, and often they will just begin to kind of adopt your frame because they're doing a behavior. If they are compliant, they're doing a behavior that you requested, and so it's a way that you can kind of get the ball rolling as far as showing whose frame is the main operating one in the interaction. Do you guys have any thoughts or examples?
Yeah, I'm going to go a different direction here and say probably what this person is actually looking for is how do you develop confidence when you do cold approaches, when you talk to girls and stuff like that? Well, really it comes from confidence, comes from that be the prize mentality. How do you do that? By actually becoming the prize and realizing that, by being confident, by developing things in your life.
So I think you're giving a really meta level answer that we would agree with, but I'm going to just push this back and say pickup artists don't do that. The whole criticism of pickup artists tend to be that they have found ways to demonstrate these qualities without actually possessing them. And so they've kind of found some hacks and shortcuts to demonstrate a frame that may not necessarily even be founded in reality. So it's kind of one of the questions of how do you do that? I'll throw out another example that is kind of a fun one is, so when I was cold approaching, or even now when I meet somebody and I want to talk to them, sometimes it's just for my own amusement. I worked for a job, or at a job where approaching the public was just part of my day-to-day routine, and it got super boring after a while. And so I would do things just to make it more interesting to me. And so walk up to somebody and say, I can't believe you would do that, and just deadpan it, and they would look at you, and all of a sudden they're like, what in the world is this person? You get all kinds of fun reactions, and then you can follow up with whatever you want. Oh, dude, I'm just kidding. What's going on? I'm bored, or anything you want. Or you can carry on the ruse, why would you say that about me? And just see how far you can go before they start like figuring out that you're just screwing with them. But if you do those type of things for your own amusement, you'd be surprised by how many people just find it super interesting, and it breaks up the monotony of the day. And
yeah,
from a frame standpoint,
one,
you hold frame doing that pretty easy.
My favorite one is, hey, you're all right. I don't care what so-and-so says about you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll say there's also a difference between trying to pull somebody into your frame, which is a bigger picture thing, versus, general emotional transference or getting somebody caught up in the way that you're feeling, thinking, behaving in the moment. Right. So getting somebody into your frame, you can't realistically do that in a big picture sense in the first cold approach of, 5-10 minutes that you're meeting with somebody. You can't approach somebody and say, hey, get in my frame. Right. It's that happens over a period of time as they generally start to transform into your likeness, kind of. Right. And
well, I think I'm going to push back a little bit on that one. And I think and this is kind of a new way of throwing this out there, at least I haven't heard it, but there's kind of like capital F frame, which is like worldview. And then there's like a lowercase f frame where it's more about who is the, I guess, more valuable, or that's probably a bad way to put it, but I guess who's like leading the interaction, whose paradigm are you operating in that moment?
Right.
Yeah,
but that's what I'm trying to differentiate between.
Sure.
Is to say that there's different kinds of frame, and so you can't expect to have the total worldview of, I'm going to pull this person into my frame in the sense of them adopting your way of thinking. Whereas if you can have them, in the moment say, oh yeah, I'm totally on board. I'm going to do whatever I can to keep this person happy, to fit in with whatever they're the whole, I'm going to nod. I agree. And it's all supportive. They're not willing to push back, because that would be a localized individual type of frame that is achievable, but it's not long lasting, because quite frankly, if you never see that person again, chances are the very next day, whatever they said yes to before, they're going to say no to the next day without a thought.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just going to comment my thoughts really quick. So developing like confidence and the, I guess, ability, I do think that it is a nuanced ability of a social skill to flirt with girls and be confident. And it's like with sales, the way you get better at building rapport and noticing like social cues and social situations is putting yourself in those situations and failing. It's almost like, if you want to get better at being witty, you would take improv. So if you want to get better at talking to girls, something that's, kind of a harder, almost like meta skill to build, you just go up and approach a bunch of girls and just like get comfortable talking to those girls, because it's a part of your brain that you have to exercise, like literally like lifting. If you want to get strong and you want to be able to lift good, you have to like, push yourself. And so doing that same thing, it's like with basketball. If you want to get really good at basketball, you have to fail a lot. And so it's like doing that with women. And so some things that have helped me is just like looking and seeing what other guys are doing. There's a couple guys that I've been watching on YouTube. Recommend them just for like, they do a pretty good job of just, I guess, having an amused mastery mindset. You can tell they're like very amused by what they do. One guy, Angry Picnic, and another guy, Almost Epic. I wouldn't really say they're like red pill or blue pill, but they give some like, kind of funny one-liners to start like giving you an idea of, something to say, like an icebreaker to go up and talk to a girl. Like one of them was, it's not really applicable right now with COVID, but one guy, he'd go up to these girls on campus. He's like, hey, I got something for you. and they'd freak out. They thought it was a bug. And he's like, it's not a bug. And so finally they would be holding their hand there, and then he just grabs their hand. He's like, oh, it's amazing. And holding this all day. And some girls were like, oh, lame. And he'd fail. He'd be like, what? Okay. Yeah, that didn't work for me too. I have a girlfriend too, or whatever. And so he just kind of like take the rejection and you could tell he was like amused by the rejection. So that's like my 2 cents on developing a confident frame and flirting.
Yeah, there's lots of material out there on this one. We could go on and on and on about it. I think, again, the key thing is just amusement. If you're not amused, you're not going to have amused mastery going on very, very credibly. And if you're not amused, why are you doing it? And I get it starts off awkward, but you just have to do it enough times. Like Levi was talking about, practice it until it's not awkward anymore. And eventually you get to the point that you're kind of even annoying to yourself that you can't stop just approaching people because it's so interesting to you. So I would definitely recommend it. By nature, I'm more of an introvert, but I have forced myself largely through work and cold approaching to just be more extroverted and get a kick out of it. So it's a worthwhile skill to learn. Moving on, we had our election special podcast. Daniel Anderson says, thanks for the conversation, listening from Australia. So terrible Australian accent there, but we appreciate you listening. To our international listeners, shout out. Actually, it'd be very interesting to find out who around the world is listening out on these things. I know our content is very Western driven, being English speaking people are all from America, but nonetheless, like to hear from our international folks out there. Looking at podcast 20, Beyond Getting Laid was the title. We got a nice comment, my brothers, keep progressing, from Paul McKee. Thanks, Paul. Let's see. Baron Brutality writes, conservatives are weak because too many of them take what women have to say seriously, and women are naturally left. They are the fifth columnists. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the premise of some of the podcasts there. So appreciate the summarization there. Mr. I Lie here writes again, good point by OZ around 8 minutes in. Christians are so focused on being nice, but it's in some cases trading core doctrines for the sake of appealing to outsiders in a very Ned Flanders kind of way. Jesus wasn't afraid to speak the truth when he needed, but in many cases really watered down. From what I've seen as an extension of this niceness, acting spiritual/pious. Yet more often than not, in most cases, the friends of mine who've left the church have done so precisely because of this hypocrisy, acting nice toward outsiders when people stop caring about those who've joined the local body and not practicing what we preach. I think it's a pretty important phenomenon there. People who are being hypocritical and that they're nicer to people outside the church than inside the church. I have definitely gone to congregations like that where the focus is so much outward that the sheep are starving. So definitely a pretty dangerous place to be.
Well, and I will say also, there's going to be hypocrites everywhere. So evaluate people based on your interactions with them and make your evaluation accordingly and connect with the people that you believe are genuine. It does take some discernment there.
Okay, and I think this is our final question. We're caught up to date here. And if anybody doesn't remember, at the very end of our last episode, we were running long and Rock and Roll Chuck got cut off at the very end. And so the question by Cook7772 was, so what was Rock and Roll Chuck going to say? Do you remember?
What are you going to say, Chuck?
I don't remember what we were talking about at the end, so help me out.
Something up.
What was I going to say? Read your Bibles every single day.
Safe Sunday school answer. All right. So I think at that point now we are caught up on here. Our intentions going forward would be to monitor more closely the comment section and do some of this in the future, whether the beginning of future episodes or otherwise. So if you guys want to have some of your questions answered, definitely comment on the YouTube channel. Levi threw it out there last time, but if we have, I think it's 1,000 subscribers, we can start doing some live Q&A, which would be a pretty fun way to interact with the community here. So if that's something you're interested in, having this sort of conversation with more community interaction, definitely give us a like and subscribe out there and share it with your friends.
Yes, and we could do even call-ins. That'd be very cool. I don't know if anybody wants to get ripped a new butthole over the air, but if you do, help, like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Click the bell notification.
Looks like Levi's offering.
I guess we can't offer any kind of better pitch than that. I think we'll just leave it at that and awkwardly go our way as well. It's good talking to you, gentlemen. Thank you. And catch you next week.
Always a pleasure.
All right, before we all hang up, guys, title for that one.
Q&A, Extravaganza. OZ needs another beer to wet his whistle.
Q&A Extravaganza. Unless somebody's got something better.
Addressing lovers and haters, or addressing the lovers and haters.
You know, it's funny. We really only have one hater, and it's the same guy who, like, I skipped so many of his comments. The dude seriously has a wicked hard on for us or something. He listens to all of our stuff, but
oh, it's so funny. What do people do? If I hated a podcast, I wouldn't listen to it.
Right.
You know, it's a special kind of hate.
I'm fine with whatever you come up with a fair title.
All right. See you, John. Yeah, later.
All right.
And then the other thing, any thoughts for content for next week off the top of our heads?
I was going to ask too. I haven't looked at the main RP channel. Did we end up sending this latest episode to the Red Pill channel?
I don't know. I haven't looked. I'll message Matt and Horizon when I send this one.
I'm taking a look right now just to see.
I've been so darn busy. I haven't even looked at the Red Pill channel. So
yeah,
they actually
looks like we only have one episode there.
RPU Mike actually reached out to me last week on, I think, Wednesday, and asked me if I wanted to. They were going to go over hard mode, and they wanted me to jump in on one of their videos. I had to turn it down. I got other stuff.
Interesting.
So, yeah, too bad. I really would have liked to have joined it, but I only got so much time, and
right.
I've had to sacrifice something else, and at this point, I can't do that. So
pretty tapped out. Yeah. No. So it looks like we only got the one episode up right now. So I don't know what.
I thought we had another one that popped up here recently, or was that posted on our own?
That channel? One was posted on our old channel. So I think we've kind of got out of. I don't know if it's out of sequence or if we're actually on target, and now we're going to post this one over there. But it would be worth checking in on.
Well, the rest of them, the situation is, the first one we released to them first to generate some buzz. The rest of them we're releasing on our channel first, and then a few days later it's supposed to be released on their channel. Now, it's possible that they pass the video along to them, and maybe it'll take some time for them to put it up. So I'll ask when I send the files over for this one and see what the guys say.
Yeah, no, it's interesting too. Looking at the video views we had on their channel, it's 388, and several of our videos are well over that at this point. So, from a expansion standpoint, it still makes sense. But I think focusing on our own channel still right now is also a very healthy thing to do.
Hey, always good to throw some seed a little farther on the other side of the path to see what happens.
Oh, for sure. No, and I mean, you've always been good about that, Chuck, and being involved in their Discord and other things, and helping bridge these connections anyways.
Hey, God's using me, and he's using all you guys, because you think they just tune in to see me? Come on. They tune in to see the traps, bro. Come on.
I'm still a little bit embarrassed and horrified and a little bit amused, and the whole I've become a meme on the Discord that I've joined one time.
Wait, you've become a meme?
You mean the Ozbot?
Yes, apparently there's a OZ bot on Discord, and people post stuff on it or something, or I guess they take snippets of, like, do people actually use that, or were they just waiting for me to join in and like troll me with it?
Okay, what it is it's the bot, and if you type an exclamation mark and OZ, what they did is they went through your comment history, and they found the cool things that they thought were like, hey, that's really cool. And so if you type exclamation point and OZ, it pops up a random comment that they've put in, that they've got a list of them.
Yeah, I saw that, but I'm just like, were they just waiting for me to join so they can show me that, or do people actually do that?
It was there before, and they popped it up several times. They actually have a Chuck bot and a Red bot too. So yeah, kind of embarrassing. Kind of embarrassing, but hey, you know what? If it inspires somebody, okay, it's all good. I was just, at first somebody did that with my name, and I was like, what is that? And I just laughed so hard, when I saw it, and then I saw it was you. I saw it was John as well, and I'm just like, wow, that's that is too funny. So
It's pretty
yeah,
funny.
but it was there before you ever actually joined.
That's
Which
great.
channel are you guys talking about?
Discord, Disciple Cord.
The Disciple Cord.
Yeah, haven't seen you there much, bro. What's going on?
Yeah, I'm busy with like 20 billion other things, but now I'm interested.
Join up, man. Send me a message. I'll give you the layout when I get
Gosh,
time.
so it's like a red pill. Like this is like red pill Christians, and then there's a ton of little like sub Reddits. Essentially, if you were to like, relate it to Reddit, all these different channels would be like sub channels of red pill Christians.
No, really what it is, if you look at it this way, Reddit is like all of John's posts, like super long, and Disciple Cord is basically like everybody else texting and responding.
It's kind of like everybody there who has like ADD and schizophrenia, like most Zoomers or something, and they can't read long posts because their attention span is shot. No, honestly, the Disciple Core thing is really cool. I am very impressed with what the people over there have done, and I don't know. I was very surprised to see how developed the community was there. Surprised in a good way, because there's some very active and dedicated people there. I think it's praxeology. We were talking on our last episode here where he's got, and this is something that I guess I should have known about, but they've been doing for a while. He's been having guys like fly out and meet up or drive out and meet up at his place and doing like in-person meetups with some of the dudes there. And sounds like having some sort of man camp or something periodically, which is, I think it's fantastic.
Yep.
Yeah, that is pretty legit. Yeah, I haven't seen any Oz memes yet, so I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Just go on there, go in any of the channels and type an exclamation point and Oz. All 3 characters, no spaces, and then hit enter, and a random Oz comment that they've saved from his comment history will pop up.
Yeah, I did that. Exclamation mark, and then OZ, no spaces. And then I tap the little enter button. Do I have to hit send?
Yes.
Yeah, it just exclamation mark Oz.
You just like message that to me because it just popped up.
Oh no, it's in the Disciple Cord.
No, you got to go in Disciple Cord and pick one of the channels, dude.
Yeah, the channels are on the they're on the
We've
left.
made you feel old.
Man, for a Zoomer, you sure don't know technology.
Whoa, bro. We're millennials. Don't you bring out that Zoomer crap.
Okay, millennials. I don't know. I'm a Gen
I've never
Xer,
felt older I've never felt older than I have in the last couple of years. It's ridiculous.
Wait, that didn't even it wasn't a message to me. So where did that go? Yeah. You typed it in the Zoom chat.
No, I typed it in the Disciple Cord. I'm in Discord right now.
Yeah. Where'd it go?
Guess the Oz bot is broke.
No, okay, here. Go to Disciple Cord general chat. Okay. Are you there?
No, I can only see the Disciple Cord. It's under mission, right?
Okay, have you posted an intro?
No.
I don't even think I've posted an intro.
Okay, then you're limited, and most of the channels you can't even see, so you might not have access to the Ozbot because you haven't done the
You're unworthy.
minimum. Yeah, you haven't shown yourself serious about getting into discipleship and being an active member of Disciple Cord. So your options are very limited until you go to the start here in the introductions and read it. You got to post an IS too.
Freaking investment, what it sounds like.
They're looking for people that'll invest. And you know what? For the people that invest, it opens up the other channels, and then you can chat with everybody. It's actually a very chat-friendly format, and you actually get to know the people better on a more personal level, which fosters discipleship and relationships, and that's kind of, you know, so it's not quite the same as Reddit, which is kind of more, we've kind of turned that into a teaching tool.
Yeah.
It's more of a get to know people and live the walk together kind of thing. So it's a little different format, but it works really great. But you got to do the minimum, otherwise you're going to be limited. And if you went to the start here and read it, it'll explain it, and you'll see why you don't have it yet.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. My priorities
I'm just
are elsewhere
bagging
now.
on you, dude. I know you got a million
know.
things going, but when you get a chance, go in there, post your intro, post an OYS, get access to the rest of the channels so that you can see what else is going on, because it's really cool.
Definitely.
You'd be surprised how much you'll be on there. I'm on there a lot more than Reddit anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that a lot of the traffic that we were getting on Reddit like shifted over to Disciple Cord. So,
well,
you know,
we're going to get kicked off of Reddit here at some point. I mean, we keep, you know, have you seen in the mod queue the comments that you know, where people have reported a comment for it's hateful and offensive against me and things like that?
You know, it's funny. I haven't, but most of it's probably me. So. Yeah, I've seen a few of those flags.
No, most of it, I haven't seen a single one against you. Maybe one.
Really? I was going to say that would be surprising.
Most of them are just against somebody that's actually telling the truth and just telling it bluntly, and people don't want to hear that. So, you know, and especially when it comes to traditional male roles and traditional female roles, that's hateful. So, yeah, time is coming. We're going to get kicked off of Reddit.
I think so too. I think that we're a downstream. You know, maybe the more we integrate with the rest of the RP community, it may be less of a downstream thing. But I think we're small enough as a community that we'll probably see TRP get nuked before, you know, MRP and then us. They might do it in one fell swoop, but I think that we'll have a canary in the coal mine. But they're also a big enough target that if they go down, it's going to cause more headache, and they've avoided it so far. So they've got a pretty good handle on it. I think that, you know, downstream we are going to have to look at other platforms, because Discord isn't too much better from a, you know, woke standpoint.
Well, but they do have a million more channels, so it's a lot harder to police the content. Levi, I will tell you this too. Once you get full access to Disciple Cord, if you go to the Valuable Threads channel, there's a pinned comment with my Google Drive link in there. It's got a link to all the Red Pill books and a bunch of sermons, bunch of Christian teaching, some videos, some audios, all kinds of stuff. So
nice. Yeah, I'll do it sometime. I just need to put it on my schedule. I actually turn most of my notifications off on my phone. Like I turn notifications off for all of my text messages. So if you guys ever need to get a hold of me, you have to call me.
Your haircut looks good, by the way.
Thanks, man. My roommate, she's a doll. She cuts my hair for $5 a week. So I just keep it. Yeah, nothing fancy. But yeah, only notifications I get, I think, are Reddit, and it's only because of our group chat. I'm not really active with anything else. Phone calls, I get Voxer, which is like a walkie-talkie app I use with my dad only, and that's it. It's only and my work app. Unfortunately, I have to use my work app. Other than that, I don't get notifications.
Levi, are you busier than me?
I'm pretty busy, man. I just have to stay super focused, and every little notification pulls my attention away from what I'm trying to do. So that's why I'm like, that's honestly the reason that I'm really hesitant to like get involved in Disciple Cord, is because it's constantly pulling away from everything I'm trying to focus on. And yeah, I'm like, my attention's really valuable.
Yep.
Okay. That's understandable.
Well, I'll put it this way. I've been on there once, and, you know, if I have free time, I'll probably jump on there again. But just jumping on there and having people to chat with, it was pretty fun to, you know, be able to answer some questions. Some guys who, you know, had been reading some of the stuff I've been posting and had some follow-up thoughts and questions and whatever. So it was good. Would recommend.
Yeah, definitely. The like couple times I was on there, if I didn't, I don't know if it was like catching a lot of attention, really, like it was when there was a lot fewer channels too. And so I'd like comment, and people would like ask me questions or comment, and then when I hopped back on, it was like half an hour of reading before I could like, you know, finally address everything. I was just like, oh geez, like this yeah, it kind of overwhelmed me. So I got a little PTSD over it probably.
Okay, Snowflake.
Yeah, no kidding.
No.
Anyways, guys, I'm guessing you guys don't have any ideas for next week, so we'll just kind of spitball throughout the week, and if we think of anything cool, then post it on the chat.
Yeah, remind me if next week I don't bring it up. We'll just have to look at any comments from this episode and you know, the last episode, and see if we need to do any more Q&A. I'd like to kind of start off our talks with that, or finish our talks, whatever works.
I would start it off, definitely.
Yeah, since we don't always have time.
People look to see if their questions have been addressed. As far as topics, I'm pretty much going to be super lazy on that because of my time investment in work. I'm going to rely on you fine gents to provide the topics, and I'll come and provide my opinion. That's about all I really have time for. So I'm being totally lazy on that. I'll do the recording. I'll send the files over. So that'll be my part. I'll let you guys come up with whatever you want to talk about, and if I have anything interesting to say, I'll speak. If not, I'll keep my mouth shut.
All right.
Sounds good.
I think what I'm gonna do is I'll just post a post on RPC asking people if they have any topics they want addressed. That'll be kind of some
good idea
fuel for the next couple weeks. But yeah, I'll do some research on best times to post. There are certain times on our post or our subreddit that is great to post.
Cool. Sounds good. All right. Later,
All
gents.
right, later, Jones.
All right.
Cool.